Hey there, Bobcat Nation, and welcome back to another edition of Bobcat Sports Talk. It's your host, Michael Davis, alongside Tim Worrells. Tim, short week, long week. Had a lot going on. Had some basketball to watch. Had some wrestling matches, some indoor track. It finally feels good to get back in sports, especially with that long week off.
Winter sports is back and it's good. Like you said, got the Facebook page busy on Bobcat Sports Live, and all the athletes are in full force right now. And we got a whole lot more to cover to in this episode than we did last week when nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome to be able to sit here and actually just kind of talk to you about actual sports instead of how we didn't get to play any and about COVID and how we actually got to watch some fantastic basketball this week and we'll dive into that. But we got some other sports to talk about first. Some indoor track, some wrestling matches happened over the week as well, right?
Yeah, the reason why we started this talk show is to cover not just, the basketball sports and kind of the major really basketball has been the one that's really gotten Bobcat Sports Live off the ground, but to highlight the other sports that are going on. And like you said, Michael, we had two of those sports going in action this week that many people may not know much about. And so we're going to highlight as much as we can. And we've already lined up some interviews here in the future in the episodes. I know we keep talking about that, but we actually talked to the coaches and we're getting some of them scheduled. So, but yeah, the first one being, I think that we can start discussing is the wrestling team, Radford High School wrestling team.
Yeah, I mean they had their first meet of the year. They they wrestled against Carroll County. They won 42-33 against Carroll County. It was at home. That being said, me personally don't know a lot about wrestling, but it's always good when the wrestling team can go in and get their first win of the season.
Yeah, 1-0, baby. And the wrestling in the main gym. Now, if you know, years ago, the wrestling team always wrestled either in the Armory or in the King Center.
Yeah.
And here of late, the last 2 years, they've been using the main gym. And I was in there when they were warming up, and it looks like some stocky, strong dudes out there on the wrestling team this year, and coached by Coach Dwayne Martin. I believe this is his second season as well. He and I both entering their coaching careers during COVID last year. He did a really good job with the wrestling team. And did you have that roster pulled up earlier? Do you still have that pulled up so you can mention some of the names so people can know them? Maybe we can get one of them or two of them on the podcast the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, that'd be great. I do have it right here. I have the schedule pulled up. I got the roster. Looks like a lot of young talent on the team. We got a lot of 10th graders, a lot of ninth graders. Let's cover a few names. 10th grader Rick Bailey, Darren Buckland, Charlie Davis, Lance Duncan, Jack Farmer, J.D. Garner Rollins, Jacob Lewis, Dominic Lyons, Dawson Martin, Jackson Wade, Bryant Weaver, Taven Williams. Varsity roster filled literally with ninth and 10th graders. Galen Ware, by the way, is the assistant coach. So only ninth and 10th graders on the roster.
I wonder if that's completely updated. Pretty sure,
no, that's
pretty sure Dawson and Charlie and all those boys who played football this year are juniors.
I was about to say that sounds
Ricky.
I was like, man, that is a lot of sophomores and freshmen there. I don't know. I clicked, by the way, I want to say, definitely am on the varsity roster on the website of Radford High School.
So. Well, hey, we'll highlight they start off the season 1-0. They've got a meet coming up here soon at William Byrd. Let's do some work, Michael, in the next few episodes, and let's get one of the guys on here, including a coach, and let's let them discuss their own sport and learn us some stuff about wrestling, and so we can be more supportive of it.
Yeah, that sounds great. The only wrestling I know is back in the day when Raw and SmackDown used to split off and they used to hit people with chairs and.
I don't think that's what the wrestling's going on in the main gym of Radford High School, though.
No, but I will say I do agree with you. I think it's amazing that they're actually finally in the main gym. They can host tournaments there. They can have meets there. I mean, isn't it great that you can come in and have a full-on meet going on? You can have fans in attendance. I mean, look at the programs like Christiansburg winning state titles. They're not wrestling in some random place where no one can come visit and like watch. Like they're wrestling in good places. So I think it's good for the team. I think it's good for the program when you can walk into the main gym and have your mats rolled out and you're having competing against other competition. You can have more than one school there as well. So I think it's great. I think it's good that they've moved. I know they had issues in the Armory back in the day, so I think it's great that they're moved over to the gym. So kind of to highlight what you said earlier. But
All right, let's move on to another sport. I was talking to their coach just yesterday. I saw a couple posts about them, and that's the indoor track team. Many people in Radford probably never even knew that we have an indoor track team. It took me like years into high school. I was in high school, and I was like, oh, we have an indoor track team. And they're pretty good. They're doing really good. They've had they competed at the Liberty Christmas Invitational yesterday, Saturday, and we're recording this on Sunday night. So yesterday on Saturday, and let me just read the follow up from that meet. Jack Davis, Connor Houston, Tariq, Imam, Michael. Some of these names I don't even know how to pronounce the last names, so I apologize. Kellen Bishop and Vance Steele all ran great races. Kellen qualified for the 1/2A VHSL state championship in the 1600 run with the time of 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Vance qualified in the 300 meter run with a 39.58 for the state championship meet as well. One track meet, and we got two guys, Mr. Bishop and Mr. Vance Steele, already qualified for the state meet.
that's impressive. I mean, we talk about it all the time on this podcast. We know the expectations when Radford High School shows up to any sport. So when you can have one indoor track meet and have two guys already qualify for states, that's amazing. So shout out to those guys. A whole season ahead of them. So it's interesting. I actually think I'll assume that it's similar to swimming. Like once you qualify, you kind of just iron your times out a little bit. So shout out to them. They got a long season to go, but hopefully we can get some more guys and girls qualify for states.
What relief already for those two guys to know they're going to be competing in the state meet here coming up. So Coach Jenna Ray said, our next meet's they have one on January the 8th and then January the 29th and then regions in February and then states after that. So pretty quick season, not a lot of meets, but you got to think these guys just probably came out cross country doing indoor track, and then they'll be getting into outdoor track here soon. So it's a whole long year thing. And, we had a pretty successful cross country season as well. So go Bobcats, whether it's indoors, outdoors, on the court, on the track, whatever it is, on the mat. Radford doing good. So just wanted to highlight those two teams who just started action. Both of them very successful first outings, the season debuts. So really proud of them. We also talked to Coach Jenna Ray, and hopefully before that, one of those two meets in January, we'll have her on this podcast so we can talk to her a little bit more and about indoor track, and she can let everyone know. So if you're listening, we're still trying to get this talk show going. It's been me and Michael up to this point, but we are working on other stuff. So let's if you would continue helping us grow this thing. It's all about Bobcat sports. And so we may even pull some of our fans on here. Should we say fans? Fans of Bobcat. Bobcat Nation. I don't think they're fans of us. Bobcat Nation on this so that other people can talk about. That would be pretty cool, actually. Give us some of the old faithful here in Radford at the Bobcat Nation to get on here and talk about Bobcat sports.
I mean, I won't disagree with you. I know I'm not the only one that loves sitting here and chopping it up about Radford High School athletics. So I'm sure a lot of people have a lot to say about a lot of things. So I think people would enjoy that.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, both of those teams, I believe, well, I take that back. Wrestling has a Facebook page, Radford High School Wrestling. If you want to keep up with all things wrestling at Radford High School. And so if you're a Bobcat fan, we want to encourage you. Don't just be football and basketball. Okay. Be all the sports, support our kids. These kids are awesome and really proud of them. And so go take a follow on the wrestling page, come out to a match sometime. I know they'll be having another home match possibly this season. come support them and support the indoor track team. So if you see these kids out in the community, you can congratulate them and really boost up their confidence.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Shout out to them, but what we're really here for right now is to dive into some basketball. So let's swing on over
This
and talk
episode, right?
about
Others will highlight the other
absolutely,
ones.
absolutely. But we finally got our first action of boys basketball this season,
Yep.
and we'll dive in. We got two games to talk about, and both were completely different from each other in different aspects. So let's dive into the first game. So the boys played Pulaski on Friday, Battle of the Bridge.
Who Pulaski came in really thinking they're going to beat us.
Absolutely. Now, and we'll kind of set the scene here because I got to the gym early. Now I had to set up. We had to call the game, so I was there about 2 hours.
We called the game. You did all the setup. I'll admit that.
That is. Hey, I wasn't gonna say anything, but
you were alluding to it. You were hinting toward it.
So, but from the time I got to the gym, you could almost feel the tension in the air that this was not a normal game. I mean, we had talked about earlier whether how the boys were going to come out. Were they going to come out slow, hot? They hadn't played all year. They had been practicing for 9 weeks up to this point. What we were going to see. And Pulaski came in, 3-0 on the year. They had beat Floyd, and Floyd gave Radford fits last year, and they were definitely threatening to come in. And we can kind of talk about what happened, but the boys put a hurting on Pulaski County on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, as the newspaper article read, Pulaski had 2 guys out, and supposedly one of those guys was their best ball handler. So we'll put that in there. Give them credit to
sure.
that.
Before you move on, I will say I don't know the score now because we're recording this during the Saints game, but Saints are playing the Bucks right now, and with the Saints have someone who's not even a quarterback playing quarterback, and they're up, or they were up. So,
Well,
anyway.
Hey, that's that. I'm just saying what the Roanoke Times said. That was one of the first things it said was Pulaski's out with 2 of their main ball handlers, or best athletes, and basically that's telling me that we shouldn't have won that game. And next time we play them at Pulaski, it may be a different story in their story. But I wanted to go back how satisfying that game was as a Bobcat fan. Now that we're basically talking to just Bobcat fans here, I'm sure on this podcast, that it was really satisfying because you can, like you said, Michael, you could feel it. Like they even had a student section here at Radford, taking up much of the bleachers. Like, hey, we're gonna come witness kick y'all's butt, but we kicked their butt. But yeah, it was huge. It was kind of right in front of us, and I was testing my patience a little bit, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk to Wade about getting us a new section there down, maybe on the court side. We'll have to talk about that.
I did talk to him about that. His words was, "I'm not opposed to it right now."
Okay, I'll take that.
So you may, hopefully, the radio will have a little court action.
Yeah. So their student sections, I was actually impressed. So we kind of alluded to this a few times, like the Bobcat faithful need to come out and support these young men and women on the basketball court, and you felt that in the air. I mean, the place was packed.
Yeah, great turnout, both teams.
I thought it was a great atmosphere. I would have loved Pulaski to show up a little better. So then in the fourth quarter, there wouldn't have been less people. But I thought the game was fantastic. Starting off, by the way, I give credit to what's that young man from Pulaski?
JJ Gully, number 1.
JJ Gully, number 1, had 12 points
all in the first half.
All in the first half. Halftime adjustment by Coach Corman. He shut him down. He had 0 points in the second half, and really he got into foul trouble, and so he was on the bench for most of the third quarter, but just really couldn't do anything offensively. So I was impressed with that because I didn't know what our defense was going to look like. I was really impressed with a lot of facets. We can kind of dive into that, but it was a great game. I mean, it was a great way to start the season, starting off 1-0 in a dominating fashion. It was a good start.
Yeah, final score 62-31, literally doubling their score. And you got to think about it. Radford, smaller school, well smaller than Pulaski. Huge rivals, battle of the bridge. Pulaski coming in 3-0. They've already played a few games, including Floyd. They beat Floyd pretty handily up to this point. And Radford, extremely young. Um, Truth be told, with this one, maybe not the wrestling team, but this one, there's a lot of sophomores on this team for basketball. And who knows? And, I was like, hey, what's going to happen? I do think, hey, give credit to Coach Wade on this one. I think he brought up a good point how it was really good to have a home game for the first game of the year, being on your court in front of your fans, and whatever. And unfortunately, they're missing two players. But Michael, do you really think those two players would have made up the 30-point difference?
No, I don't. And you could argue it would make up 12 points. But I do not think in any capacity it would have made up 30 points. Now you can say it might, but I don't. I think the defense that we saw, especially from Prelo and even Kelly coming out in the dynamic shift. I mean, we've got guys guarding men all over the court. And so to shut down a team the way we did on Friday, I was impressed with. But not only the defense, from the offensive side of the ball, Elijah Kelly. I mean, we saw flashes of him last year, but the show he put on Friday night was electric. I mean, I said it on the broadcast. He really looked like a Kevin Durant type player, long, lanky, big wingspan, can shoot the three ball. And when he slammed those balls down, especially the first one, it caught me off guard even. I I was impressed with his play offensively. So, and you could say we did. Landon Clark didn't even play until basically the fourth quarter, and he came in and knocked down his first three. Probably the best 3-point shooter we have on the team.
Yeah.
So to go from the defense that, I mean, we were basically locking them down.
Yeah.
It was what, 24-14 at half, I
Yep.
believe.
Yep.
So
Started
they
out
only,
the second half 9-0 run from the get go. Elijah Kelly was the first 5 of those points. So, and then Coach Cormany, I was poking some fun with him on Saturday. We're up 18 coming out of that run. They call a timeout. He comes out on full court man to man.
well, it's kind of one of those. It's kind of one of those things where, you know, in football, you see this a lot in football when a team's up big and they're just kind of running the football, running the football, running the football, and then coach calls a timeout to save some things or do some things like, hey, we're just trying to get the ball. We'll throw a touchdown. If that's what you want to do, if you want to waste our time, we'll throw a touchdown over the top. So it's the same idea in basketball. If you want to, we're killing you at this point. We can make it worse for you, and that's kind of what Coach Cormany did. No malice there, but it just is what it is. But I was very impressed. I was even impressed with Nathan Wesley coming out. His
Mm-hmm.
role has changed over the years. He's a senior leader on the team, but we kind of talked on air that I feel like he needs to be more of a senior leader in the locker room.
Yeah.
His role has changed. Used to run the point guard primarily, and he still does when he's on the floor for the Bobcats this year. But it just looks differently. He doesn't have to score as much as he might have had to before, and now he can really sit back, control, run the offense for the guys. So I think he did well, getting the guys out of pinches a few times on Friday. So I was impressed with him, the way he's coming on the court, and his role has changed this year.
Yeah, Nathan's not going to be the scorer for us. Not saying he's incapable of it, but Coach Cormany and the staff talk a lot about roles, and I think that's the conversation they've had with Nathan over the last few years. You're not the guy we need scoring 20 points a game. You can, but we don't need you to force it. We need you just to control the offense and get our guys into place. And we saw where Nathan is capable of scoring when needed. In fact, getting a few and ones both on Friday and Saturday. The boys did play last night as well. And so, and defensively, the Bobcats are always going to do what they do best. And that's what Coach Cormany said in the Run at Times article. Like, look, the only thing we could rely on tonight, we have no idea what kind of team. He said this is like the first time in years that has zero idea what to expect coming into this year. I don't know where my scoring is going to come from. I don't know who's going to be the stud. I don't know who's going to be my leader. One thing we can rely on, though, is playing defense, and I hope we did that. And I think they did it excellently against Pulaski. And I told you, Michael, before the game, you asked me what the key was for these two teams. And, Radford's just got to keep discipline. And because notoriously, Pulaski, when it goes to the discipline meter, Radford's on a whole nother level than Pulaski. And so when you put athletes who I think, honestly, Pulaski's a bigger school than us. I'm baffled year in and year out how they don't produce the athletes like Radford does. And maybe we're blessed. I don't know. But then you throw in coaches that I'm not talking anything about Coach Kanoy. He's a really good guy, and I think he's a good basketball coach. But when you put him on the same sideline as Coach Cormany and the whole entire staff that the boys have, I mean, Pulaski, it's hard for me to believe that those two dudes that weren't able to play for Pulaski this first game would have made a huge difference, a 30-point margin difference. But I don't know. I guess we'll see in the rubber match.
Do you know when that second match is against them?
I do not. I know the girls play them middle of January, so maybe it's around that. Not on the same day. We won't go back to that, though.
Nah, maybe we'll get one.
Or it is on the same day, but not the same location.
Well, ours has to be. The boys have to play at Pulaski coming up, and your game in January is at Pulaski. We know that for sure. So it could be.
Yeah. We also have a home. Yeah. I mean, we have, whatever. But, hey, so, yeah, Radford looked really good against Pulaski. We're excited. They won by 31. They doubled the score in Pulaski, shut them down. JJ Gully had 12 points in the first half. He was 12 of the 14, scored 0 in the second half. They made halftime adjustments. People scored. Elijah Kelly looks like the stud of the year right now for us, along with Landon and Gavin. Gavin had 14 that night, and so Gavin had a solid night too. But then we look at our trip to Greenbrier East last night, which we finally found the broadcast link to that about the second half, and the boys trailed most of the game and had a chance to win the game at the end. We could talk and debate whether or not we thought that was a foul or not. Pretty sure we both think it is. And but Michael, boys won by 31, then they lose the very next night. Let's break that down. What do you think?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, well, first off, there's a lot of things to think. I want to say, first off, it's tough to play 2 nights in a row. I mean, you see it in the NBA a lot when they have to play a back-to-back. You always fade the team playing the back-to-back because they're most likely either not going to win as much of a margin or they're going to lose the game outright. So it's tough to play a back-to-back, especially when you're coming off a game, even though it was a very lopsided, a lot of emotions coming into that Pulaski County game. A lot of hustle coming into that game, and when you kind of put out a lead like that, the lead ended up being very large, but it was close at half. So when you're rolling over into the next night, it's tough. I will say, like you said, Bobcats were down basically 10 to 12 all night and had to fight back. This is the one thing I thought coming into the Pulaski County game, it just didn't affect us in the Pulaski game, that I felt did affect us in this game. Greenbrier were able to rebound very efficiently against the Bobcats yesterday.
Yeah,
and I felt like we don't have a true big man, so to speak, like normal. Like a lot of times we'll have an Alex Knipe or a John Woods or a Miles Jones or someone at the end of the day, and even going back, I mean, even further,
Jerome Alexander.
The list goes on and on. We have a guy, when push comes to shove, I'm going to box you out and I'm going to get a rebound.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to put myself on the block. I'm going to get the basketball and I'm going to score, period.
Yeah.
And so I think that is going to hurt this team this season. The game of basketball has changed. I mean, it's threes or dunks nowadays, especially in college and NBA.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing that in high school as well. So, but at this level, You need a guy who's going to get you the rebound when you need it. And late in that game, there was a lot of second chance opportunities for the other team. And it
Yeah.
really would have helped if the Bobcats could secure, especially when they're trailing. Now, if we go to that last play, I would argue it is a foul. Now, that being said, if the Bobcats weren't down 12 the whole game, we wouldn't have got ourselves in that situation because we were basically down 12 until 4 minutes ago. Then we battled back. So,
Well, and I think the rebounding was the big difference maker in the state semifinal game last year against Union. And we talked about that when we broadcasted that one from Calvary Baptist Church basement, when we watched it online and brought it on to the broadcast. But I remember talking about we weren't rebounding well in that game, and it costed us. So I think you make a good point, Michael, that rebounding could be an issue this year when push comes to shove, and I think getting defensive stops. But last night I think we gave a lot of dribble, drive, penetration, and Coach Cormany talked about that. Even against Friday night, he said I think we gave up, a handful of straight line drives to the basket that he wasn't pleased with. And I think we saw that more Saturday. And there was a lot of variables to bring in. Greenbrier East wanted Radford. Out of state opponents had their target on Radford. They're amped up, fired up, ready to roll against us. And we just played the night before for the first time. And game shape and practice shape is nearly impossible to match. It's just different. And then you get on a bus that very next day after a 1 hour shoot around for 2 hours and go play another game. Lots of variables. Now, the big challenge for our boys is going to be this Tuesday night or I should say Tuesday afternoon at 3:30 when they travel down to play Roanoke Catholic. For those listening right now, Roanoke Catholic beat Greenbrier East by around 13 to 14 points already. It's going to be a challenge.
yeah, I think it will be a challenge. The one thing that the Bobcats obviously have, you got some time off. You got. I assume they didn't practice today, which is Sunday.
Yeah. Now
but
too.
Right. But you have a couple days of no games. You're going down and traveling, and the one thing that other coaches don't have is that's Coach Cormany, and so we know they're going to watch some film. They're going to put a game plan together, and they're going to attack. I mean, there's no other team that can compete with the coaching staff that we have on the sideline. So
Sure.
if we take it from there, yes, this game is going to be tough, but you got to start somewhere. So we're going to be able to watch film. We're going to be able to attack at it. Like I said, it's tough to play 2 games in a row. I'm curious to see what the game's going to look like on Tuesday. I don't know what the other team have, but it is scary when you just drop a game to a team when you were trailing most of the game, and then to say they beat them by double digits. It's interesting. It's kind of, not great to see.
Yeah, I still stand by. I think the big thing to watch this year for the boys, their biggest test totally would be that Fort Chiswell Christmas tournament. And not this week, but the week after Christmas. 3 games in a row, no matter what, competing for a championship. A lot of young guys, hostile environment. And so the Christmas tournament's always fun. I still have my eyes set on that game as being, or those 3 games as being a pivotal moment. It's either going to be a learning moment or it's going to be like getting over a hurdle here early in the season as some young guys. And so I think that one's going to be a big growth spurt for the Bobcats. And we all know Coach Cormany gets pretty fired up for that tournament. And so it'll be good to see some of these younger guys get exposed to that fire here early. And I can't wait. I mean, Tuesday's game is going to be interesting to listen to and to watch, but I think that Christmas tournament the following week is going to be the biggie still.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the frustrating thing is, and you kind of said this before, the expectation is to win that tournament. I mean, everyone comes into that tournament wanting to play Radford because if you could knock off Radford in that tournament, you've essentially locked up the tournament.
Yeah, you want to win the tournament, you got to beat Radford first, second, or third night.
Right. I mean, take your pick which one it is, but you got to beat them.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, the Bobcats play a tough schedule every year. I mean, they play above the division they're playing in when it comes to the playoffs. Yeah. So really playing in the Christmas tournament is more playing the teams you might see in the playoffs. But the schedule outside of these district games and things like that is much harder than the Bobcats will play um, in the playoffs. So, take these with a grain of salt. Like you said early on, this may be a little bit of a different season. It may not be the 32-1 season we saw a few years ago or whatever it was, and when we steamrolled everybody and beat everybody 20. It may be a couple. We got to grind some of these wins out. We may take some losses early to see how it goes. But that's the one thing about high school basketball. I mean, it's a ebbs and flows sport. You never know what you're going to get night in and night out, and that's why you always have to tune in.
Yeah. Before we finish up this conversation for this week's episode, Michael, real quick question I didn't tell you I was going to ask you. Watching the boys now for 2 nights, the first 2 games of the season, who do you think is going to be the under the radar player for us that really makes the biggest difference? We know Elijah Kelly, we know Landon Clark, we know who's the most under the radar guy right now that you're going to put that name out there right now and you think that's going to have a big season?
Let's see. Well, I was hoping you were going to say who's going to be our best player because I would have just put my money on Elijah Kelly. I think a lot of guys have potential to be really good for the Bobcats this year. I think Parker Prelo has potential to be a very good under the radar, and he's obviously not an under the radar guy because of who his family is. But the defense that he showed me against Pulaski, I was very impressed with.
Yeah.
I also think that guys like Joseph Mitchell and Max Knipe and Thomas Grant have potential to be under the radar guys in the paint for the Bobcats. I mean, we need guys to step up and rebound, and we need guys to step up and clog the paint up. I think those guys have potential to do that. It just kind of depends on which one of them is going to step up and do so. Also, you kind of said this earlier in the broadcast that Gavin Cormany had 14 points against Pulaski. If you'd have asked me how many points he had, I probably would have guessed 8 or 9. I didn't feel like he was as involved in the game as 14 points is.
Right.
So, to be honest with you, you can take this for whatever grain of salt you wish. I would love to see him actually step up. I know it's very hard to fill Cam Cormany's shoes, especially as a sophomore. But the Bobcats are going to need him, especially once teams hone in on who Elijah Kelly is. Once teams figure out who Elijah Kelly is and what he can do, Gavin Cormany has to be able to control the offense and knock down the three. So,
yeah, I mean, and Gavin, no brothers want to compare themselves to one another. Gavin and Cam are 2 different kind of style of players. Cam's going to shoot the rock. He's going to let it fly. Gavin's a guy that likes to dribble and get around defenders. And really, he's more of a pass first kind of guy. I was talking to some of the coaches on Saturday, and they said, we really want Gavin looking for a shot more, but he's not. He's not as hungry as for a shot that we want him to be right now. And so Landon is, which is good. Landon's going to shoot the ball well. And Landon hit 2 straight threes against Greenbrier East that gave us the lead for a split moment that got us back in the game. And then, like you said, under the radar, Joseph Mitchell hit a huge 3 that gave us a 1-point lead even late. And so if you didn't get to watch the game, I know we've been talking about, probably should have explained it at the beginning. Radford down by 1, took a timeout with Coach Cormany, and they drew a play, had a great look. Gavin got totally hit and bumped and no call. And still the shot had a chance going in. It was a little short, but I also think Elijah Kelly didn't have to give that ball up. I'm thinking maybe the play was drawn that way, but Elijah got to the lane. I think if he took one huge stride like he's got with his long wingspan, he could have probably just finger rolled it in for the game winner. But that's neither here or there now. Still a good shot no matter what for the win last night.
Yeah, I think you're right. When the play was happening, you could almost feel like he rushed to stop and pass that ball off, almost like he was told, "Hey, you're going to pass this ball off," because it's almost like everyone knows Elijah Kelly is going to get the ball, so we're going to purposely not give Elijah Kelly the ball at the end. And it almost seemed like it was inevitably going to happen that way. And so I agree. I wish he would have just attacked the basket. And I think the play is great because the play was I'm going to attack the basket regardless of who was attacking. But no offense, in basketball, when I'm running towards the basket, a guy's running towards me, and we run into each other like a wall. That is a foul, and I'm going to the line. But
that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened with Gavin.
Yeah. So the game's over. Again, if we hadn't been down by 12 the whole game, that wouldn't have mattered. But it is frustrating that it happened that way.
I do want to say this: Bobcats got to hit more free throws than what they did the first two games.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely right. Couldn't echo that any louder.
Hey, what do we got this week, Michael?
Yeah, so you would ask me when I just pulled it down. All right, here we go. So there's no games on Monday. Girls and boys both play on Tuesday.
Hey.
Girls play at Fort Churchill in their Christmas tournament.
Let's go.
We got the JV girls playing at 11 a.m. Versus Tazewell, and it looks like the girls varsity. It says at noon.
Yep. Two different gyms.
At Forge, two different gyms. Okay.
Yep.
We'll play at noon against Tazewell as well, and that's at 12 o'clock. Two different gyms. Can you out mission for one and get into both, or you got to buy admission to both?
I think you can do one and get both.
I like that. Love that. Bobcat Sports Live will not be in attendance for that game on Tuesday. And as far as I know, we could be. Nope. I work during the day. It's during the day. Boys play as well on Tuesday, not a Christmas tournament. Their Christmas tournament is after Christmas. They play at Roanoke Catholic at 2 o'clock, the JV, and then at 3:30 at Roanoke Catholic, the boys game at 3:30. That will probably be on the VHSL app. On Wednesday, the girls still in the Christmas tournament. Who they play and what time will be determined. You'll have to follow us on Bobcat Sports Live. We'll post the results. We'll post who they're playing, when they're playing. But again, the boys and girls will both be playing, the varsity and junior varsity will both be playing. Also, wrestling match at William Byrd on Wednesday, December the 22nd. Don't have a time for that yet. It's still TBD. And then the girls' third day of the Christmas tournament on Thursday, when they'll be in the championship, of course.
Yes, of course. Sorry, I'm multitasking.
Because Lainey Klein will have a double-double every night.
That's right. I mean, that's what I tell her. I tell her, you better have a double-double.
All right. I think so. That's the week coming up. I'm excited about it.
Always exciting in Bobcat territory. Hey, listen, everyone, thank you for listening to this week's episode. And a lot of Bobcat action going on even before the Christmas season. So take a like on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, share us on Spotify even right now. And we'll see how the Bobcats do this week. And we'll be right back with you next week to give you all the recap of what's happening this coming week and what's happening next week. Michael Davis, Timothy Worrells, and as always, it's a great day to be a Bobcat.